Sharing with you in this video how to control your thoughts and emotions. And so what I really want to make clear before we get into this video is that this video, whatever you think it's going to be, it's not going to be like that. This is going to be really paradoxical. It's going to almost seem ironic, the answer that I'm giving you in terms of how to actually do this, because the ego has this perspective on what it means to control your thoughts and emotions. But we need to drop the ego in order to actually gain control, true control, from a place of actual power, actual confidence, where you're not faking it and you're actually coming from a place of truth, and you can have certainty and conviction in how you speak and what you do because you know how to actually do it. And so the first thing that I want to share with you in this video in terms of how to actually do this is to simply have observation of awareness. And so this might sound like a simple concept, but I really don't want you to overlook the power in this, because oftentimes I believe that the most simple things are the most powerful. And so really, we play lots of roles as we go through our day. And that's what life is that we're just playing roles. You have roles in your workplace, you have roles, in your friendships, you have roles in your family, all these different areas like family, work, friendships, whatever the case might be. But sometimes I think that we forget that to play as not just the ego construct, but to play as awareness itself, to sort of be like you're observing the fact that you have an awareness, you're noticing that you have an awareness. What you'll find is that the roles that you play in your life don't fall apart, and your life doesn't fall apart. You actually find that if you play as, and you attempt to have this technique in mind of having observation of awareness, or just be observation as awareness, seems a little bit confusing, but really what I'm trying to say is that you're noticing the fact that there's an awareness behind, so to speak, everything that you do. And so again, when you do this, you don't lose control, you don't lose the ego construct necessarily, depending on how you want to define the ego. What I mean by ego in this moment is just, an identity. There's nothing wrong with having an identity. But often the problem is that we get entangled and sort of wrapped up in our identity. And then what happens is that the more entangled and wrapped up you are in your identity and, your mind and the construct of, your thinking and all the things that you do in your life, the less you're going to have control over your thoughts and your emotions. That's just what I find to be the case in my experience. Now, if you want to have maximal control over the variables that you actually have control over, in my personal experience, it's paradoxical, it's backwards, it doesn't seem like it makes sense. But if you just simply drop the ego completely and surrender your ability to have any control whatsoever, it's easier to align with your intentions. It almost becomes easier to align with your thoughts and what you want to create. Because it's like as soon as you think the thought, you just take immediate action on it. You drop it into reality. There's no buffer time between a thought that you want to do and then taking action. And it's not to say that you have, again, lack of wisdom or lack of awareness. It's quite the opposite. Because you do so much, but you learn in the doing. And again, when I say all this stuff, I understand the concern that might come up. It's like, well, isn't this gonna make everything go wrong? Am I gonna be immature? Isn't many problems gonna happen in my life? Quite the opposite. In fact, I believe that you not doing what I'm sharing with you right now is gonna lead to all of those things. Now, I can't say for sure, but that's been my experience. And so the second thing that I want to share with you in this video in terms of how to actually control your thoughts and your emotions is to have what I call detached presence. And so what this means is that if you really want to control your thoughts and your emotions, what you want to start to do is to be fully involved in what you're doing. For sure, be fully present, be fully there, be present, but at the same time, just be detached. And how do you do this? Well, I find that the more present you are, not only of just what's happening in the present moment, like you can be present of your senses, you can be present of what you're seeing, you can be present of what you're smelling, you can be present of the what you're feeling in your body, in your hands. But it's like there's a level further, I believe, that we can take where you're again present of the fact that you have an awareness at all. Because you have an awareness, right? You've always had an awareness since the very first memory that you can possibly think of in your life. You've always had an awareness there. Right? There's an awareness that, look, okay, I just exist, right? You just exist. But what's going on there is that oftentimes, again, we get wrapped up in what's happening in our life. Again, our life situation and the stories and, you know, the past, and then what we want to do in the future, which are all valid things and good to a certain degree, but then they become problematic in certain areas when we, again, get entangled in them. So is it possible to be fully involved in what you're doing, but then not wrapped up in it, so to speak, and not entangled in it? I think that that's the place that we're all really seeking to be in our life, whether we realize it or not. It's to find what, in some cultures, it sounds kind of cliche, but they call it the middle way. You know, it's the middle path. What does it mean to be in the middle path? It's a perfect balance of the masculine and the feminine. So you're just in a perfect balance of knowing how to use both of these energies in your life. And so when you can do that, when you can know how to use both of these energies in your life, the intention of your mind, and then surrendering it into the present moment, and then grounding your thoughts into existence, what's happening is that, again, you might think like, oh, that sounds, like really interesting stuff. Like, how do I do that? Detached presence. So if you have detached presence where you're so involved in everything that you do, but at the same time, you're detached from all of it. Again, how do you do that? Stop playing as the role and then be the awareness, so to speak, behind the role, for a lack of a better word, right? And then so what this actually does is that you're letting go of control here. You know, you're letting go of control and you're grounding into the present moment. But then again, any thoughts that you do have, any intentions that you do have, that you could say is like the controlling part of your mind, where you're controlling your thoughts, you're controlling the things that you allow into your life and don't allow into your life. And you're not controlling people or controlling situations, but you're controlling your thoughts, you're controlling your actions, you're controlling what you can control. But then you have to learn how to surrender and surrender it into the present moment. That's what's going to help you to gain actual control. And if you look at a person that's extremely disciplined, extremely trustworthy, that almost always follows through with what they say they're going to do on a general level and on a long-term basis, and they get consistent results in their life, how do you actually become that person? How do you actually do this? And it's not going to be by being attached to your ego. It's not going to be by being attached to your identity and your thoughts and then being wrapped up in the present moment and what's happening. You have to rise above your emotions in your life in order to gain control. You still have to feel them. You still have to be present with them. There's no running away from anything. If you're trying to not feel something, don't get me wrong, the art of avoidance is a powerful thing that you can do. That's powerful. The art of avoidance is true to a degree, because if you just choose not to focus on something, that's oftentimes can be a very good thing to do. But it's not about not feeling every single thing that pops up in your present moment experience. That's not what it's about. You can take something, look at the contrast of it, and decide that while you're fully feeling and you're being present with it, it's not something that you want to partake in. But if there's a little bit of resistance there in the bigger picture and there's a judgment there from your ego, oftentimes we tend to repeat problems in our life. Have you ever heard the saying that your problems will always follow you wherever you go? I believe that's absolutely true, because if you are attached to your ego, whatever traumas you're attached to that you believe you have, whatever issues you believe that you have, whatever, any things that you don't like in your life that you believe are out of your control, all these things that you're attaching to, are going to lead to you repeating problems no matter where you go. It doesn't matter if you change your location, it doesn't matter if you move, it doesn't matter if you go across the world, or whatever the case is, because wherever you go, there you are, and then there's your ego coming with you and all the attachment and all the negativity and all the unconsciousness. And if you want to remove all of that, you have to come from a space of detached presence. And the way to, again, come from detached presence is to let go of control. Which leads me to the final thing that I want to share with you in this video, which is truthfully that if you really want to control your thoughts and your emotions, I believe that there's a very spiritual element to it. It's really about almost trusting in consciousness, trusting in God, and trusting in the divine. Like, you have to trust in these things. You have to be connected to the bigger purpose of life, to what the actuality of life is kind of pointing to, if you want to say it like that, I believe at least, where if you have to kind of see it like that in order to truly gain control. Like, if you really want to gain control in your life, you can't just, again, trust in your ego. But then again, when I say don't trust in your ego, I can give you like a concrete technique and example. But again, there's a spiritual element to it that's not just a technique of you being present. It's almost like you have to trust in something greater than yourself. Again, if you surrender control, if you kind of give back all your control to God, give it all back to the universe, you have no control. There's nothing you can control. It's not up to you. It's all up to the divine, because really, God has it all planned out already. It's all done. But then what people can do here is they can take that and then not control the controllables in their life, not control the variables that are within their control. So you don't want to fall into a victim where now your prayer and your true prayer becomes wishful thinking. Wishful thinking is not what we're looking for here. A true prayer is your connection to your divinity, your connection to the divine, your connection to the present moment, and then you take that connection, and then yes, you have an intention. Yes, you have something that perhaps you want in your life, but it will come from the purest space of your heart, the purest, most spiritual place of your heart. Everything that you do should be infused with a spiritual dimension of presence. Everything that you do in your life should come from divinity. Everything that you do in your life should come from your direct connection to God, your direct relationship with God. If you don't have a direct relationship with God in this present moment right now, and you're not able to act accordingly in alignment with your values and your connection to who you really are and consciousness and the present moment itself and the oneness and all that is, you're going to have a problem controlling your thoughts and your emotions. You can't do it all by yourself. The ego thinks, I'm going to do it by myself. I don't need any help. I don't need family. I don't need friends. I don't need mentors. This. I got it all figured out. I don't need God. I don't need none of this. It's like, you know what? Go ahead and I'm not inviting you to do this, but what I'm saying is that if you go ahead and test that, what I believe you'll find in that space are just the consequences of not trusting in God, not trusting in the divine, not trusting in who you actually are, in your divinity. So I think that if you want to gain true control of your thoughts and your emotions, you want to start to connect to that divinity within yourself, where you're actually able to be the most authentic and the most powerful version of who you actually want to be.